fire broke out at 604 Iberville Street in New Orleans, Louisiana, on June 24th of 1973. This fire would result in the deaths of 32 people and cause injuries to at least 15 people. This attack is known as the Upstairs Lounge Arson attack. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Liz, and today we're going to be discussing the Upstairs Lounge Arson attack. Now, if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn your bell notification on to all. That way you know whenever I upload. As I just recently hit 200 subscribers, super excited. So keep joining on in the Crimes on Pride Month that I have going on my channel, and I hope you guys continuously enjoy. So the Upstairs Lounge Arson attack was known as the deadliest gay club attack in history until the Pulse Nightclub shooting in 2016. Now, the awful part about this is that there was no justice that was served for who committed this crime. And I'll kind of touch on this a little bit later, though. So, now on June 24th, 1973, this was a Sunday evening, there was a Christopher Street Pride celebration that was happening in New Orleans. So everybody was out, they were celebrating their pride. Now, the Upstairs Lounge was a club located on the second floor of a 3-floor building. Now, this was on the corner of Iberville and Chartres Street. So right on the corner. That night, they held the normal beer bust drink special that was happening that attracted about 110 people, and this was like a casual blue collar like gay community that came out, and this happened between 5 and 7. Now, after the event ended, their patron count kind of went down between like 60 and 90. There was also George Stephen Matee, I think it's Matee, George Stephen Matee, that was performing on the piano. And he was also there discussing fundraisers that were happening in the area and in the upcoming future. So they were really they were having a good time. They were celebrating their pride, and they were just enjoying their life. Their fun would be cut short. So at about 7:56 p.m., the buzzer downstairs went off, so their door buzzer. This prompted the bartender, his name is Buddy Rasmussen, of whom he's also an Air Force veteran. He went to Luther Boggs, who was a taxi driver that was just waiting for his patron to leave. He asked him to answer the door. So Luther did. When he answered the door, he was quick to notice that literally the whole staircase was on fire and that there was a lingering smell of lighter fluid. So right off the bat, somebody had lit this on fire. So Buddy immediately led about 20 people out the back exit and onto the roof, of which they could access a neighboring building's rooftop and escape down there, like escape ladder. There were others that saw the floor to ceiling windows and tried to escape through them. But here's the thing about these windows. These windows have safety bars in them, and it was also like a double paned-ish window. So it would also prevent people from breaking through them. So the safety bar windows have about a 14-inch gap in between each pane, and it's extremely difficult to break through these windows. Some eventually did make it through the windows. Luther Boggs was one of them. He was one of the few that made it through these windows, and he also pushed a fellow female that was with him through the window as well. Here's the thing. He was covered in burns from head to toe, and he was still covered in flames when he went through the window. Now, the owner of the neighboring buildings extinguished the flames on Luther, but unfortunately, it was too much for him. He would succumb to his injuries on the 10th of July, about 16 days later, due to third-degree burns that covered 50% of his body. Reverend Bill Larson of the Metropolitan Community Church ended up removing an AC unit from like the bottom of one of the windows. You know how you can have the floor AC units? So he removed that, and he tried to get through the window, but unfortunately the panes ended up falling on him, and it pinned him in the window frame. His charred remains were extremely visible for onlookers from the outside, because you could see half of them hanging through the window, which kind of makes it a little more grotesque. And a lot of the people that were passerbys took photographs of the Upstairs Lounge when it was on fire, so it kind of made it a little bit worse. Now, this fire literally only took place for 16 minutes from start to finish, and it was the most detrimental fire that happened in New Orleans. So there was another pastor from the Metropolitan Community Church. His name is George Mitchell. He managed to escape, but he then returned because there was his partner, Horace Broussard, or Louis Horace Broussard. He realized that he was still in the building, so he went back inside. And unfortunately, when they found them, their bodies were clinging together because they had burned to death, or they had succumbed to their injuries from burning. George Mitchell's children were actually visiting him from out of town. So they flew in from their mothers and they were staying at his home, and they were waiting for their dad to come back home. Now, eventually a friend of Mitchell's sent the children back to the airport and flew them back to their mother's house. They were never told what happened to their dad before they returned home. They never knew. Now, there was firefighters that were stationed about 2 blocks away from the building, but they were stuck because of a traffic jam. Lovely. And pedestrian traffic. One of the fire trucks even tried to get to the lounge via the sidewalk, but ended up crashing into a taxi because they were in such a panic to get there to put this fire out. So one fire truck eventually got to the lounge, and when they finally arrived, they found people that were struggling against the security bars in the windows, but firefighters were quick to put the fire out. So there was 28 people that died on scene. 1 died on the way to the hospital, and there was 18 that suffered from injuries, and 3 of which included Luther Boggs, who then would die from his. So the investigation into this failed to produce any convictions. There was a prime suspect in this case, but he was never charged because he took his own life in November of 1974. This is Roger Dale Nunez. Now, he is still the prime suspect in this case for committing the arson attack on the Upstairs Lounge. So when police attempted to question him in connection to the attack, he was hospitalized due to the fact that his jaw was broken, though he couldn't speak. So he got out of that questioning. Now, when he would be questioned later, he did not show any type of nervousness or guilt. There was a witness that did claim they saw him in and out of the bar about 10 to 20 minutes prior to the fire, but police also determined that this witness was a liar because he seemed stressed. I don't know about you, but if your friends just died in a fire, I would be super stressed too. Those cops are like, what the fuck, man? So Nunez was ultimately diagnosed with conversion hysteria, and this was in 1970. So prior to this fire happened, he was diagnosed with conversion hysteria. So he was in and out of psychiatric facilities because of this. Now, he was released in 1972, God knows why, from the care of a facility. But that's not it. He was sent back to a facility, and he also escaped. So in 1972 as well, he was arrested because he escaped from a facility. After this, he was never picked up again, like arrested-wise, by police. He would be picked up and questioned in regards to the arson, but he would never be arrested again. So there was a friend that would later tell investigators that Nunez admitted to starting the fire with lighter fluid that he bought from Walgreens that was right around the corner. And after he doused the stairs in lighter fluid, he then lit matches and threw them on where the lighter fluid was. And that's what caused everything. So as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, or a little bit ago, Nunez took his own life in November of 1974. So, as of 1980, the state fire marshals of Louisiana officially closed the case of the Upstairs Lounge with Nunez as the prime suspect. So, coverage of this fire, this part is going to anger a lot of people, so bear with me because I was super pissed when I read this too. So, coverage of the fire was super minimal. There was literally no media coverage of this case whatsoever. There was nothing. Absolutely nothing. So there was also no official government speech made about it. You know how they make speeches about public attacks that happened, all this jazz. At least that's more mainstream now. That never happened for this. Absolutely not. There was no public official in Louisiana that came out and spoke about it. Nothing. There was nothing. Absolutely nothing. Now, this shocked the community because there was no one publicly speaking about this arson attack, and it was because it was involved with the LGBT community. So there was a great shock for the community, also because there was no talk of this on the radio as well. So The Episcopal Bishop of New Orleans, his name is Iverson Nolan. He received more than 100 complaints from his parishioners after he publicly rebuked the small prayer service that Reverend William P. Richardson did at St. George's Episcopal Church in reflection due to those who were affected by the fire. He publicly said that. Don't follow it. Don't listen to it. It didn't happen. So, Reverend Richardson, which is the one that did the service for the victims, he ended up receiving hate mail due to his service. This hurts my heart knowing this because he was just doing something out of the kindness of his heart. Now, there was a memorial service that was held on July 1st at the Unitarian Church and at the St. Mark's United Methodist Church. So these were held by Finis Crutchfield and another Metropolitan Community Church member and founder, Troy Perry. And now Troy Perry came out from Los Angeles in order to participate in these memorials because of how much it touched his community. Now, in the aftermath of this fire, there were many families who did not step forward to claim their family member, also because gay rights in this time was not a big thing. So once you would claim somebody that was at a well-known gay club, your family would be hated on publicly because you are supporting a gay male, which sounds very disturbing. And there were several anonymous individuals who ended up standing up and paying for the burial of 3 of the unknown victims they couldn't identify. Now, they were also buried with another victim who was identified in a mass grave at the Holt Cemetery. Now, this victim's name is Ferris LeBlanc. He was identified. He is the identified man in the plot, and his family did not learn about his death until 2015, until January of 2015. He's been dead since 1973, and now you finally just heard about his, wouldn't you file a police report? I know the time that this happened, it was very bad no for you to be gay, but still, he's your family member. So there was a documentary that was made in reflection of this case called The Upstairs Inferno. Now, the director of this documentary, Robert Camina, he also stated in 2018 that one of the 3 unidentified men that was buried with Ferris LeBlanc finally got his name back. Finally, after many years. He was a 32-year-old male named Larry Norman Frost. In June 1998, on the 25th anniversary of the fire, there was a memorial that was organized during the Gay Pride celebrations by Reverend Dexter Brecht of the Big Easy Metropolitan Community Church. This is also known as the Vocar MCC. And Tony J.P. Pisani, I think his last name is Pisani, he was also there as well. Now, this was held at the Royal Sonesta Hotel, and there was also 32 members of the community that stood to represent the victims of the fire for the crime that initially took place. Now, Councilman Troy Carter of New Orleans led a jazz funeral procession from where the lounge once stood on the corner of Chartres and Iberville Street, and would go to the cemetery to where the victims were buried in a mass grave. They then laid a memorial plaque and wreaths on the graves of the victims. So, what are your thoughts about this true crime case? I was highly enraged when I read about this because they literally did nothing to let people know about what happened. Nobody knew about the Upstairs Lounge case or openly knew about it unless you were a part of the LGBT community at this time. Now, like I said, gay rights were not a thing. So there was a lot that people couldn't do when it came to their loved ones, especially when they were a part of the gay community. So, again, what are your thoughts? Leave them in the comments down below. I would love to hear what you have to think. If there's another pride crime you want me to cover, please leave it in the comments down below. I would love to know as well. So that, my friends, is the Upstairs Lounge fire. And I hope you guys learned something from this. Again, my name is Liz. I'll see you guys in another video.